Well, students, this lecture is pretty short. This is just basically giving you the background of South Africa. So here it goes. Apartheid, the precursors. South Africa. You got the largest population of whites on the continent of Africa in South Africa. Why? Because it's a settler colony. What does that mean to be a settler colony? The U.S. is a settler colony. You got a lot of people come from another place. They settled in a new place, and they make a colony. The difference in South Africa and the U.S. is that the natives of South Africa still outnumber the settlers. Now, you had other settler colonies in Africa. If you read Albert Memmi's The Colonizer and the Colonized, this is why his perspective on this is very important. Because Algeria was a settler colony. The French left there when Algeria failed to, came to independence. Kenya was a settler colony. British went on back to England. In South Africa, you had these Dutch people who settled so early that they really didn't have a place to go back to. I mean, they technically have a place to go back to, but they came so far, so far back that if they went back to the Netherlands, it would be like me, a black American, going back to West Africa to live, where I'd have to relearn the language and relearn the customs, etc. It actually would be easier for them than it would be for me, because they know at least what country they came from. The two large groups of whites in South Africa are the Afrikaners or the Boers. Boer is a derogatory term. And the English, who came later. Afrikaners are mostly of Dutch descent who intermarried with French Huguenots, refugees, and Danish, German, and other Europeans who came. The English came around in the 19th century, which is the 1800s. And they overrode the control of the Dutch by the 20th century. The Dutch was in small settlements anyway. They didn't have much power. They had their different republics. We'll get to that. But the English came in and they were ready. So this is a map of Southern Africa during the period that we discussed where colonization was starting. So you got Zululand. The Zululand was still independent. You have Griqua Land West, which was mostly Khoisan people. Griqua Land East, Khoisan people. The Cape Colony, which was a British colony. Natal, which is also British. Basuto Land. This is what later becomes Botswana. And South African Republic, that was the Transvaal. And the Buchanan Land, British Protectorate, Basuto Land, if I'm not mistaken, is what becomes, I think it was Botswana. No, Buchanan Land became Botswana. Basuto Land became Lesotho, And Matabele Land, this is later on would be Zimbabwe. This is Mozambique. And German Southwest Africa is the country we know of today as Namibia. And I can't even remember what this is here. Afrikaners, again, they were Dutch traders. They came along. They first established a refueling station there in Southern Africa. And when they were on their way to Indonesia, India, on up to the other side, they needed a place to stop and refuel. And eventually it became a permanent station. You had people settled there. They were growing food that could be sold to the boats, the Dutch boats that would go on further. When they came, they brought slaves from South Asia, meaning Indonesian slaves, and traded with local people, mostly Khoi and San. And they developed a lingua franca, which is a Dutch base. And this language is called Afrikaans. So in Afrikaans, you have words from Khoisan, you have words from Zulu, you have words from Xhosa, you have words from Indonesian languages, and then you have the Dutch base for the language. Okay, so the French Catholics ran the French Huguenots out. They came fleeing religious persecution in 1687. With Walloons from Belgium, they came and settled in South Africa too. So you got 1652 the first setup, 1687 the second one. That's a long time for people to be in one place from another place. And they all speak in Afrikaans, which is the name of the language, Afrikaans. It's a Dutch dialect. English came and established the Cape Colony in 1806 and Natal. They established themselves in Cape Town. They fought it out with the Zulu, with Shaka, and in 1834, the Afrikaners who were on, or the Boers who were on the coast, they fled the British and went inland. When they went inland, they established three republics, Transvaal and the Orange Free State, or two. And then the English and the Dutch eventually fought it out. 1899 and 1901, the Anglo-Boer War, the Dutch lost and were brought under British domination. And the Union of South Africa was founded on white rule, all four provinces of South Africa. Other than the three African kingdoms that had protectorate status under the British, all black South Africans were brought under the control of these whites, the British and the English and the Dutch. And the Dutch wanted to end the protectorates. The English refused. So race, whites, Northern Europeans, that's English, French, Scandinavians, Dutch, and other Germanic tribes. Honorary whites, Southern Europeans, Portuguese, Italians, Greeks, Arabs, Persians, and Jews. When I say honorary whites, they are considered better than the blacks, but not as good as the Northern Europeans. And your blacks with your Bantu ethnicities who speak 9 distinct languages in South Africa. And, you know, the three main ones we know about, the Tswana, the Zulu, Xhosa, and there are others. The colors were mixed race. This was Khoikhoi, San, South Asian, and whites. They all mixed together. Most colors were slaves of Boers until 1834.